Hello and welcome to another episode of Transcontinental Overload. We are going in a very different direction today. Have you ever wondered why you are drawn to certain places in the world? Or why you feel happy in one place but not in another? And I mean not just that feeling of being on holiday and the weather is better than back home and you're not working and all that. I mean that visceral feeling like, wow, this is a place that I could live in, or maybe even I belong here. Or have you asked yourself why you couldn't get out of certain places fast enough, even though everybody else seems to love them? Have you ever wondered whether there's maybe more to it than just obvious reasons? Today's guest can shed some light on this. It's Katherine, expat coach and the creator of the Bad Days Abroad website. You might remember her from a previous episode. She was a guest on this podcast just over 2 years ago, and we talked about her life as an adult third culture kid and how to choose the right moment to move or repatriate. And when I spoke to Katherine, she had only just moved back to her passport country, Estonia, after long years of living in other countries. And obviously, these last few years since her repatriation have had a major influence on her life. In the process, she has added a very exciting new service to her coaching business, locational astrology. This is also known as astrocartography or astrogeography, and I am so excited to have Katherine here today to introduce you to this. I don't want to go into too much detail at this point because Katherine will do that so much better, but in short, locational astrology uses the date, time, and location of your birth to reveal your unique astrological world map, with different planetary lines that each have a different effect on how you experience a specific place. And then you look at your birth chart and where each planet resides in your chart, and the combination of all of this can help us understand ourselves better and find out how we can create more harmony or excitement for our own path. There will be a ton of terminology that you might not be familiar with, especially if you've never had your birth chart done or even dabbled in astrology. But don't worry, just listen and enjoy. And I've included some terminology in the show notes, and Katherine's given me some links. And if you have questions, please reach out. We can help you. It's a big topic. In order to make it less abstract, we actually use my own life's journey. So essentially, I'm having a live locational astrology session with Katherine that you will get to listen to. Of course, we don't go into every single place that I've been to or I'm planning to go to, and I had to edit out a few things just to keep some things private. But still, it will be quite personal. But to be honest, I don't think we could have done it any other way, and I really wanted this to be approachable, as topics like this can be quite abstract. Anyway, enough of me talking. Let's see what Katherine has to say about my story. Hi, Katherine. So good to see you.
Hi, Stephanie. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast again. It was an amazing experience last time, so I'm curious to dive into a new aspect to my work. But yeah, so I'm Katherine, and I'm the person behind baddaysabroad.com, where I have talked about the struggle of deciding whether to stay or go in your expat country for the past few years. And I'm also a coach helping expats decide. So should they stay or go, or where should they move, or where should they settle down, and dive into all the nitty-gritty aspects of making such a big decision. And most recently, I started to add locational astrology to my services as a way of introducing a more spiritual take on why do we experience certain places in a certain way? Why do we not all have the same experience in a place that everyone's saying, you have to go there, you have to be there? Just to kind of, put our own experiences into perspective and understand what is our soul trying to maybe communicate to us in that location. So, and I'm excited to talk about that with you today some more.
I love this so much, and I haven't really shared this on here, but I've this last year has been a really tough one for me and my family, and as I was kind of combing through my backlog of tools and how I could cope with a new situation, and all the usual things were failing me, like one after the other, I started to tap into my more spiritual side too. And it's been revelation after revelation, I have to say. So I've always had an interest, but kind of dabbled in it, but never to the extent that I was actually taking it seriously, you know, when you're kind of like, oh, there must be more to it. Why does this not work? So there must be a reason. And so yes, when I saw that you were adding this to your services, I was so excited. So we're using my own story case for the purpose of this episode to illustrate what a session with you would look like. But before we get started, could you give us a little introduction to astrology, I think in general, maybe, because I'm sure we have listeners who, I guess everyone knows the sun signs, and maybe even moon and rising, but not much more than that. So it might be a good idea to have a little introduction to astrology, and then locational astrology in particular.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it concise because there's so much to say about it. But yeah, astrology for me is a way to understand basically yourself, your growth in this lifetime. And then what people know the most is, yes, their sun sign usually, but there's actually so much more to it. So when we pull up a person's birth chart, we can actually see how different themes and challenges are going to play out in their life in different areas of their life. And astrology is a way to understand and validate some of the struggles that we're having, and also find remedies to that. So astrology is not a prison. So my mentor has always said that it's not a prison. It doesn't tell you that, you know, your life is going to suck and that's it. It's rather, well, this is something that you're meant to experience in this lifetime, and these are the remedies to help yourself grow and help yourself understand yourself on a deeper level. So no one is being punished by the stars or anything like that. So it's a tool for self-understanding and growth, basically. And locational astrology is basically taking your birth chart, so the way that you move through the world and maybe experiencing certain parts of your life, and applying that to the world map. And so that when you do that, then you kind of get closer to the explanation of why is it that we don't experience the same place in the same way as other people. Why do we have a harder time with love or career or our home life in one place and not somewhere else? What could explain that? And locational astrology gives us some insight into that. And of course, again, there are so many nuances to that as well. It's not like you read a person's birth chart and say, this is how it is. And if you experience it differently, then, you know, someone's wrong. It's rather, you know, our upbringing, our environment, all of those things start to play a role as well. So it's a very nuanced world, and I love doing that as a dialogue with people to put things into context for what someone may be experiencing in a different, in a specific location.
Yeah. I love how you're saying that it's not a prison. It's not like you read your horoscope and then you're like, okay, it's bound to happen this way. But more of a way to understand yourself better in your surroundings and how and why you react in certain situations the way you do, and why you get triggered by certain things too. Exactly. And so I love how it can be a tool also to just open up a whole new way of looking at yourself.
Yeah. And one of the beautiful things about astrology is that it can also be, when you get a reading done, it can be the first time you feel seen for some of the very private challenges that you may be experiencing that, you know, maybe you're aware of, or that you go to a therapist and talk about, but then have that laid out to you in black and white is humbling, but also incredibly healing in some sort of way. And it gives you hope that, okay, so if this is what I'm supposed to work through, then this is how I can do that. And these are some of the tools that I can work with then. So yeah, it's a gift, I would say. But it is, of course, a big jump to think about, okay, the planets and the stars are, you know, somehow play a role in how my life plays out. And, you know, on some days I have a hard time with that too. But the more I dive into birth charts and seeing people be so moved by what they hear about themselves, the more I'm like, well, damn, I have to be a believer too. Like, there's just, you know, it speaks for itself, I feel.
Yes. And sometimes what you kind of think, oh, it's just a coincidence. And sometimes when you dive deeper, it's like, that's an awful lot of coincidences. So, so I'm really excited to to take this journey with you. And I mean, for our confines of time for this session, obviously we can't look at every single aspect, every single place I've traveled to or lived in my life, but there are a few places that I've felt this instant connection, and other places where I'm just like, yes, I'm glad I've seen it, but I don't need to go back here. So I don't know, where should we start? Maybe the place where I was born.
Yes.
Because so in advance I gave Katherine all my birth date and location and time, because this is all essential to establish the birth chart, as well as a list of places that had an impact on me in my life, or places that I'm interested in. And then Katherine went and worked on this, and now we're looking at the results.
Well, I think one of the things I want to share before was that it was an absolute treat for me to dive into your entire travel catalog, I would say, or serial expat catalog. It was such a treat because I've never done such an extensive analysis of someone's travel through astrology. And I really liked that exercise because I've never been able to see that there may be a pattern to why we're drawn to certain places. And maybe there's a reason for why we're drawn to the same places that have a similar energy on some level. So in hindsight, I would have loved to ask, like, what's the timeline of these places, and to see if there's a pattern there too. So this is the analytics nerd in me going crazy.
Yeah, of course. I think the general thing that came back from all this was when you said to me, oh, you seem to pick places that are challenging for you. You don't seem to go for the easy ones. So that, I think, is a really interesting observation, because you would think that if you vibe with a place, it's one that you find easy to live in, and that's clearly not the case, or so far anyway. Maybe I'm just not there yet in my journey. Oh, and also, before we go further into it, there will be a lot of astrological terms, and we will mention planets and nodes and things like that. So I think we're going to try and explain as we go along. But clearly there is so much to it that and if you're really interested in this topic, we will provide links and sources that you can dive into yourself. But it's just, I don't think there's much point in explaining everything in advance, because then it's by the time we talk about it, you've forgotten. So let's get into it. So I grew up in southern Germany, and I always had this sense of, I want to explore the world. I want to go to other places. I traveled quite a lot as a student as well, and while still living with my parents. But I just had the sense of, no, there's something for me that is holding me back here, and let's see, I need to experience something else first. And then I went to the UK, and I fully expected to come back to Germany after that, but I didn't. So I've had other plans for me, but let's talk about those two places maybe to start with.
Sure. Yeah, so I did look. I mean, I looked at all the places that you gave me, and I'm just for your reference, I'm gonna look at the maps now rather than you. So I'm gonna make silly faces. And I was really curious, and yeah, it was fascinating to look at your relationship to your birthplace, so Germany. And I was half expecting, there's gonna be this planet or that planet there. But it wasn't. I mean, it was actually a pretty solid place to live, if you can call it that way. But when I looked at your birth chart, then I realized, oh, okay. So one of the things that your birth chart showed me was that your Chiron, so it's the planet that indicates where our biggest wound in this lifetime is, and that we need to work through bit by bit, layer by layer, is in the house of home and family and mother. And in that same house, we had, or you had Mars, which is all about this go-getter energy and feeling driven and passionate about something. Which to me, if I put that together, indicates that, well, if you don't feel supported or there's some sort of challenge in the home area, then your, eagerness and then confidence to kind of go after the things that you want may be a bit hampered. So it was interesting to hear that you always felt a little bit like held back. And that I found the answer in some sense in your birth chart rather than the world map. But then what I found after that was that Mars influence, so this passionate, driven, go-getter energy, this is something that you've been chasing in other parts of the world. And one place that you found that, I'm going to double check now, was UK. And so it's interesting to then ask yourself, like, okay, so was this the stars telling me to go there, or was it my instinct to go there? But it was a place where you suddenly were free of, or at least not as influenced by your home environment, and where you got to then, really step into that individualistic, I'm going to go after the things I want and explore the world. And, I'm going to be unapologetic about that. And I wonder then, how was your experience in London and Kent when you lived there and traveled around there? Does that resonate with you?
It's absolutely resonating. So this is exactly what I felt. I need to get out. I maybe didn't feel it consciously that I was being held back. With hindsight, absolutely. And after now looking back, the way I couldn't express myself, or I was just too intent on pleasing people, or being just kind of doing as I was told, or not brave enough to stand up and say, no, you can tell me this, but I want to do something else. I didn't have that when I was like in my early 20s, I want to say, or just growing up as a teenager. I was quite always trying to fit in, even though I always felt that I didn't fit in. Like all my life I felt like I didn't really fit in, but I was trying, because that's what you do. And then to a point, like being kind of held back and having issues from in a home environment. I guess a lot of people can relate to that. A lot of people feel that, when they need to go out and do their own thing and get away from their parents just to experience who they are and all that. So it's kind of, I think it's just a ritualistic experience that a lot of us, or rite of passage that a lot of us, or most of us, kind of feel. And maybe in my case, it was just a bit stronger. And I feel like the whole way I decided to go, I traveled to the UK in my teen years, and I always just felt this, like, oh, I really like it here. I like the culture. I like how people are, and the weather didn't deter me, nothing. It was just kind of my thing. I always had this thing. Yeah, I'd rather go to the UK than the US. So when I was studying English, that was my focus. And so when I decided to apply to go to the UK, everything happened really quickly. And coincidence or not, but it was just, I literally was given the option to, for a place at university. And because I had applied for the following year, but they were like, well, we have a place if you want to come, like next month, literally. But I had like 2 months, and I had to decide within a few days. And it was just, it felt so, okay, I guess I'm doing this. So I wasn't given much choice, and it just felt right from the first moment. And that was my experience. And then suddenly with hindsight, it was like, I really feel like now I can be myself.
Yeah.
Before we go more into this, so you mentioned the house, the fourth house.
Yes.
Can we just give, for those who have no idea about astrology, what does that mean? So we have, and I mean, you're probably much, much better at explaining this, so I'll let you do that.
No worries. Thank you for bringing that up. I already got into astro lingo there. I've always loved this explanation that really made me like understand what the hell does a birth chart even, show me. And if you've seen your birth chart, then you'll see that there's lots of like little symbols there, and there are like sections there, and it's a big circle. And so I'll just explain that, what those bits and pieces are there, even though the picture can be very, very complicated the more you dive in there. But basically, you've got the little symbols that you see there are planets. And I've loved the explanation that the planets are sort of the characters in your life, and your life is that drama, the theater play. But the planets are the characters in that play that is your life. And the signs that those planets land in is basically the way that these characters play, the way that they dress, the way that they act, the way that they react to other planets that are nearby or opposite to them. And the houses, which are the sections, are different areas of your life. And so if you put that together, the planet is going to tell you in the sign that it's in how certain things are going to play out, or may play out, I should rather say, in a specific area of your life, and how it's going to connect or not connect to other parts of your life. Because if you've had a look at your birth chart, then there are often some like lines between different planets and different sections, and these indicate a relationship between different areas of your life. And so if one house or area of your life is lit up and it's connected to another one, that those themes can also come up for you. So it can get quite complicated depending on how complex a person's birth chart is. Some people have a very straightforward, this is what you're here to do this lifetime, go for it. Others have their eggs in different baskets and may have to kind of juggle many things in one lifetime. And so, but this is basically the explanation in a very short way about what a house is. And then the fourth house is typically related to themes around the home, family, and the mother as well. But there's some discussion around that as well. But I don't get into astrological debates. That's not my jam.
No, and again, it's all for interpretation, right? It's not a prescribed way of this is how things are. It is a guideline. And just to kind of visualize it for people. So the houses, basically what you normally get is it's a circle, and it's divided into 12 sections, 12 houses. Exactly. And these all kind of represent different things. So the first house is to all up yourself.
Yeah.
I know this is impossible to ask, but can you just kind of a quick round the circle? What do we have?
Yeah.
Just as a little visual. I know and I have one somewhere here as well where we can I can supplement.
That's all right. I'll be very brief because each house, the more you dive into astrology, you realize they indicate different themes and different things, and it's always a matter of interpretation which theme it pertains to. But typically the first house has to do with the self, independence, leadership. The second house is about everything that we own. So that can be material resources, but also our self-confidence. So our again, I love the way my mentor talks about it. So it's our net worth and our self-worth. The third house is about the way we communicate, express ourselves, but it also relates to our siblings, for instance. The fourth house, I've already explained, home, family, roots, mother. Fifth house has to do with our creativity, our passions, our joys, our hobbies, things like that, as well as romance. I love the fact that that's in the same house. Mm-hmm. And the sixth house is about our day-to-day routines, our health, our day-to-day job. So it's not our purpose as such, but it's the way that we earn money, for instance, or how we earn money. And the seventh house has to do with relationships of all kinds, friendships, partnerships, romantic kinds. It can also indicate whether you get married or not, or you get divorced, depending on what sign that house is in. The eighth house is an enigma for me, even though I have a lot of planetary placements there, but it's the purpose in my life to figure that out. But it's partly to do with occultism or esoterics, other people's money, joint resources. And it's a pretty dark place, but it's when you have it, it's fascinating. The ninth house has to do with higher education, travel, things like that. Also something that I have a lot of placements in. 10th house is about career. So now we're talking about like purpose and things that drive us in our work life, and not the day-to-day job where we're just earning money to get by. And the 11th house has to do with groups, communities, network, and social media. And by the way, your birth chart indicates to me that you would absolutely be doing a podcast. So I love that this is happening for you.
Oh, I can't wait to hear more about that. That's so funny.
And the 12th house is also a bit mystical, maybe. It has to do with everything that's done behind the scenes. So it can be working through your psyche, or being part of institutions that are sort of closed from the public. And it's a very it's a strange house, but it also kind of forces us to look at ourselves in a different way than other houses maybe. So this is, yeah, sort of the roundup of the different houses, but the more you dive into it, you realize there's even more ways that you can interpret them. But I hope this will be helpful.
Thank you. That was amazing. I could never have done it that fast and that comprehensive. And so then in those houses we kind of have the planets show up depending
Exactly.
on our birth charts. And so the planets always have they have this different energies. And then what star sign, sun sign they show up in, or moon. And so I mean, this is for someone who has no idea, this is probably completely like, whoa, what on earth are they talking about? But maybe it's interesting enough to dive into it and maybe read up on it, because I mean there are plenty of sites out there that can explain it in more detail. But that was great anyway. So where were we in my life's journey? So I'm in the UK.
We were in the UK.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is also, I mean, coinciding in my life with a time where I had finished my university education. I was entering job market, career and all that. And it was, and then starting a family. So all that happened for me in the UK.
Okay. I wanted to say earlier on that, I love that you sort of put a question mark on, was it just a rite of passage wanting to move out, or was it astrology? And I always keep a healthy level of skepticism about everything, because I'm also partly an academic and I'm partly an esoteric person, right? So there's two sides need to be balanced in me. But when I looked at my travel catalog, my serial expat catalog, then the first place where I landed was also a place where I felt the most myself, and all the planets kind of supported that. And then the next place was a place that helped me kind of break free from my family, which was something that I subconsciously was, seeking to do. And when you look at all of that, when you're 30 something and, in a much, you're in a much better place in your life, more mature, you have a better perspective on your early life experiences, you look at that and you go, how on earth did I do all this? I didn't know anything about astrology. I didn't know that this is something that I'm seeking on some sort of spiritual soul level, but I mean, it's there and it's hard to argue with in hindsight, right? So I love the fact that you put that under question, and because I've had that question as well. What was it? Was it wanting to be independent, or was it something deeper at the end of the day?
And do you also find that sometimes when you're younger, you tend to follow your intuition more? I don't know. I found that with myself. A lot of decisions I made were very impulsive, or maybe not, but just kind of felt like I had a gut feeling, and then that took a back seat because life, and you're asked to make a lot of decisions out of practicality and external factors and other people's opinions and what have you. And so I for me at least, it felt like especially that one, moving away from Germany and starting my own thing, was very much a gut feeling. And then obviously then things happened and fell into place and all that. But then, and we're going to get to this, as I was then moving on from the UK to US, and all these things felt more like they might not have felt right, but I kind of I thought that's what I needed to do because of all these other factors. And so my brain was kind of getting in the way. And so now at this point, I'm trying to reconnect with my intuition about things. And that's why I think this whole the astrology spiritual side of things is very helpful.
I don't know if it's something to do with being young and then, being more in touch with, your gut instincts. But I feel like as I was listening to you, the keyword that kind of stuck out was intuition, right? A gut feeling. And not everyone is in touch with that. They lead more from their heads, which is fine. We need our heads in certain situations as well. And others are more gut instinct based, right? And so I wonder if it has more to do with that. And I absolutely resonate with the older you get, the more you become like, okay, let's do a risk assessment of this. Like you can't just, pack up and go. And so you lose touch with that instinct, that openness, that willingness to just trust and flow with life because you've been burned a few times, right? And
Yes,
so, yeah,
absolutely.
it makes sense. So it partly has something to do with age and partly not, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's all a journey.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So as I said, my life was now firmly in the UK. And I thought this is fine. I feel good here. And obviously not all the time. It has ups and downs, and you lose a job or you get a new job. And then being a new mom, having kids, and having practically established a whole new network of people around me. So things were going quite well. But then,
and so the next place you landed was in California, right?
That's right. Yeah. And that was very much external factors that had my husband got offered a job, still working for the London company, but it was. And I was very skeptical, but I mean, also being very interested in different cultures and everything. And at that point, I'd lived in the UK for over 10 years, and so why not try something new? And California is clearly on a, everyone's like, wow, of course you're going to go to California. I mean, who says no to that? And and it was really tricky, actually, to this whole transition period. And I was constantly asking myself whether this is the right thing to do. And I think at that point, my brain and my intuition and everything was just in a big fat knot. So I kind of let everything and everyone else around me decide. And also at the back of my mind, I was like, oh, this is just a very temporary thing, 2 years maybe. And then I'll go back because I like it where I am. And
famous last words.
Famous last words. That did not happen. So then we ended up in the Bay Area in California.
I love the backstory here because, I mean, this is exactly where I can make the point that it's so important to look at a person's birth chart, because for you in California, you've got the Venus line, and the Venus line is a planetary line that indicates a beautiful, easygoing life full of pleasure. And so, of course, you'd want to move there, right? Who wouldn't want to? Everyone was raving about it for you as well. Like, how could you not want to move there, Stephanie? Well, your gut instinct's like, no, this isn't for me. And for you, yes, Venus is let me just double check. Your Venus is in your 12th house, which is, all this behind the scenes work, diving into your psyche and feeling quite alone as well, or even wanting to be alone. All of those things were, activated for you when you moved to California, in a place where everyone was going, oh my God, it's the best. You should absolutely be here. And since your Venus has a connection with the house that deals with partnerships and relationships.
Let me add a few things just quickly for those listeners who've never seen a locational astrology map. Imagine a world map with lines running through it. So some are more vertical, others more horizontal, curved, they're crisscrossing, and they're all planetary lines. So the Venus line, Mercury, Jupiter, Mars, Neptune, Saturn, and then Chiron, which we mentioned earlier. And in my case, my Venus line runs right through California, amongst other places. And you were saying on my birth chart, Venus is in the 12th house.
Yeah. Maybe I was a bit too hasty explaining that, but in California, you have the Venus planetary line as one of the main lines. So that would mean for me that I would go to your birth chart and look at where is your Venus placement. And in your case, it's in the 12th house. So isolation, working on yourself behind the scenes, things like that would have been activated for you when you moved to California. And I can also see that there's an opposition to a planet called Saturn in your seventh house. And what that means is that the seventh house, since it has to do with relationships and partnerships of different kinds, and the Saturn influence has to do with responsibility and feeling kind of restricted by them, then, if I dare say, it makes sense that you would end up in California, a place that otherwise would be, so coveted for others maybe, but for you would be or could have been a rather isolating place and being restricted or, sort of forced into it through relationships of different kinds, right? Because that's what you said earlier on. I felt like, I did it because other people said I should. Which is a perfect example of that. And so it's, even when you pull up your own your location astrology map or world map, you have to be careful about whether, you're going to experience a place that seemingly is, beautiful and wonderful in the same way as someone else, perhaps. And that's a beautiful it's a beautiful example, but it was your life, obviously, which was, full of different nuances.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, California is absolutely stunning. And I do miss so many aspects of it. But I mean, in terms of, I think for us as a family and in my relationship too, is very challenging because it was clear, my husband had been offered this job. So, and I couldn't work for the first, I want to say 9 months. So I was very much thrown into the role of, there's this horrible term which is called trailing spouse, which expats are familiar with, which is kind of you have to give up some, and it took a long time for me to find myself again. And I was kind of in this role. I'm like, I'm here, but I'm completely stripped of everything else. I'm the mother, the homemaker, which is not a role I hated at all. That was kind of I loved being a mom and being at home, and I didn't work full time for, my kids were little. I enjoyed all that, but all of a sudden I was doing this by myself without my network and with my family and my friends and everything. And so I had to really establish a new persona in a way, and I had to go out and force myself to go out and start from scratch. And and I did, and I found very fulfilling ways of living, and I found really good friends, and it was amazing. But it took a long time, and I had to go through this whole period of who am I, and why did I do this? And clearly that was a pretty big strain on my marriage too. And this is like when you're saying the seventh house is committed relationships and marriage. It's like, absolutely makes sense. That was not an easy time for us, even though we were in this beautiful environment.
It makes a lot of sense. I wonder, would you be okay to share what age you were, or how old were you when you moved there?
At that point, hang on, I was in my late 30s.
Late 30s. That makes sense. So another point that you have in your 12th house has to do with our soul's purpose in this lifetime. And so one thing the main thing that you're encouraged to focus on in this lifetime is all these 12th house themes. And so even though this was a place that, really challenged you in different ways and made you question things, on a grand scale of things, you're supposed to question yourself, because that north node, not sure how to explain that beyond this, it indicates what our soul's purpose is in this lifetime. It matures at the age of 42. And so in the years before that, you would start to feel this pressure to question, like, who am I? What am I? What do I want? And it's different for every one of us, how we experience that and what area of life it activates. But for you, it was all those things that came up about who am I and what do I want to do? Alongside you being a serial expat, right? And
Oh, exactly. So being so far from like friends and family, obviously it's so challenging for everyone. There's this sense of freedom that you get, but also just being complete. And then I mean, for European, being in California means really that's like the opposite rhythm. You can't call people because they're asleep, or the only time you can get them is like before work or whatever. It's just challenging on so many levels. And so for us also, it was like, okay, at what point we'd missed the 2-year mark and then the 3-year mark, and we actually was getting into life in California. But then it was like, I actually want to move back to be closer to friends and family. And but then you look at your family, because then again, there's others to consider, and then you know, the kids, and so my husband wasn't really ready to go back to Europe at that point. And so we decided that California, for many reasons, just wasn't where we wanted to be, but maybe there was something else. And so then we ended up in Austin, Texas, which again is, if I had, I always say this to people, if someone had asked me age 20, would you ever consider living in Texas? I would have said, hell no. Never ever. That's just really not a place. Like, why would I want to be in Texas? I mean, I'm in the US, which was not something I had really envisaged myself doing, but California is different to Texas. So, and I had lots of also reactions from people like, are you crazy? Why would you say that? It's like the only places you can go to are California or New York.
Yeah.
Anyway, we ended up in Austin, and it threw me, that kind of pulled the rug out from under my feet completely.
And I was, again, I'm not making this stuff up. Texas for you, or Austin in particular, is super, super close to Chiron, which is the planet that indicates where we have had the biggest moon in our life. And for you, as we explained earlier on in the session, it's in the area of home and family and mother. And to live right on it, I can imagine, was not easy in any sort of way. And so, it begs the question, like, are we choosing these places, or is the world sort of conspiring to force us into difficult places? Because, I mean, as you said, you make this decision as a family. It wasn't you on a gut instinct going and deciding, oh, I want to move to Texas now, and Austin in particular, right? No, it was, I don't know, the stars, the planets, fate.
But then it's like, why? I mean, had I known, or had I known about locational astrology, and someone had said, ooh, maybe you shouldn't go there because that's really close to your Chiron line, and that means this and that, I might have been like, okay, right, that's out of the question. I might have put my foot down and said, no, I'm not moving there. That might have actually, I think at that point, because I was so desperate for some signs from the universe to tell me I shouldn't do this, and they didn't come. And so I went. But maybe things would have been different. So anyway, and then you end up thinking, well, clearly there was a reason why I had to go there.
I wonder what came out of that time for you. Like, so what were you able? I'm pretty sure that you were challenged to grow and face some things that were pretty difficult to do. Were you able to do that in the end?
I think I tried really hard to throw myself into my whole, here I am, new, I know how this works now. I'm an old hand at this. I can join clubs and do this and organize activities, and I just kind of didn't feel like I was belonging anywhere, and I couldn't. There were various things, and I just always felt like a fish out of water, and I'm like, people don't get me, or like, what's going on here? Because it's a really cool place. There's lots to do. It's, my family loves it. We're into music, we're into food. It was, for all that, it was great, but I'm like, I can't do this. And I was attributing it to the fact that, yes, this is another move. This was just too much. And we have like friends and family back in Europe, and I miss them. And so it just got to this point where I'm like, I wish we hadn't moved here. I wish we had moved straight back to Europe. And so we packed up and went back to the UK after a year in Austin, because I was like, I'm done now with the US, and I crave the proximity of my loved ones. I felt like my kids are, that they need to be Europeans. And so it was very much coming from me. Like, we need to go back. We moved back into our old house in the UK. I thought that was a time, yes, challenges everywhere along the way, but I feel like I can make it work there. I know the drill. I know what it's like, so I can do this. And and that was really coming from me, and I felt like, right, I'm empowered, I'm doing this, but my whole family didn't
Mm-hmm.
share that. And so
Mm-hmm.
after a year in the UK, seeing how it was affecting every one of us, we were just torn. All of us were just in such a big mess. And then I was like, okay, that was too hasty, and we made a decision to go back, and then we were back in Austin. And that, so it was a really strong sense where I was like, okay, we need to go back, and this time I'm going to get it right. This time I'm
Okay.
going to be open-minded. So maybe I was just not open enough to the whole Austin experience, or maybe this time I'm going to go there and I'm going to get the job and do everything and just let myself go fully. And then it became really challenging for us as a family, as my kids then, with again another transition within California to Texas, to the UK, back to Texas in just a few years was just too much. So then mental health challenges on the whole, and I'm not going to go into that in here, but it was for us as a family, it was absolutely nuts. And so then you question everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do wonder how that phase of their life, of your kids and your husband's life, would play out in their astrological charts, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was activated
really
for them, right?
To see. Yeah.
Because I mean, I believe that we don't choose our family by accident, our partner, our kids don't choose us by accident. So, what lessons did they need to learn from all of this?
And to add to this, so again, this is an astrological phenomenon. We are all fixed signs, my whole family. You have the fixed signs, the cardinal signs, and the
adaptable ones, the mutable ones.
Mutable. That's right. And so every season has 3 of them. And the fixed one is the one in the middle. So we have them all. So this is Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio. And we have all 4 members of the family have one of them. So, and the fixed signs don't like change.
No,
told.
not at all.
So for us, for our family in particular, to be going through all those changes, what an astrological catastrophe, really.
But is it though? I mean,
How is it?
It could be a way of like, okay, well, this is how you were birthed into this world, but maybe one of the lessons is to cope with change, to learn to make it work, right? It doesn't, again, astrology is not a prison. It doesn't mean that you're going to struggle with it for the rest of your life, but it's a growth. It's a process of growth for sure. But we'll see when your kids grow older and they're able to like reflect on this time of their life. Maybe pull a birth chart next to you and like try to put it into perspective.
Yeah, I'm actually really interested in seeing that. I mean, I know my younger one's birth chart because we've had them done at the same time. But yeah, obviously I'm not an astrologer and I haven't had the training, so I only know a few things. But yeah, so anyway, we're back in Austin, and I'm going through all this, huge introspective phase where I'm like really questioning everything. And so that's where that process really started. But then at the same time, it as all this, I was going through this, and I have this really weird love-hate relationship with Austin. I was realizing how much this place had really got under my skin, and on even like a physical level. So when I go now to visit, I just feel the energy of the place. So there is something that with all this the challenges and everything, it just kind of, maybe my relationship to the place got stronger because of all that, because I worked so hard.
Well, of course, yeah, you get to know it, and I guess the more you got to know how Chiron plays out in your life in the 4th house, you're also more sensitive to it. Like you already know it. Like, oh, I know all about you.
Yeah. But I mean, clearly in this case, and we were saying earlier that the fourth house is all about home and family and the influence of the mother. So in this case, then it would have been me, the mother, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
and then all these questions about how am I mothering? How am I showing up in my family as a mother? What do I all
Yeah.
the things that I, you always have this when you have kids, you want to do certain things different to what your parents did and your mother, and you're like, no, I'm never going to do that, so I'm going to do things differently. And then you get thrown into a situation and you question everything. So it all makes sense. Yeah.
Where to next?
And then because of all the challenges and then again the job changes for my husband, we moved to the East Coast. So we're just outside of New York now. And that at that point because I was questioning everything, every decision, and I'm thinking I can't be relied on. I'm clearly not the best to make decisions, and still in that whole process of
working through it.
What the hell happened to me? So I kind of let things just happen. And so then we moved to the East Coast, also to be closer to Europe. So in that sense, it made complete sense to go to a place. We're still in the US, so we have to kids have to finish school and all that kind of thing. And I'm as close to Europe as I can be.
Yeah.
And so it all, again, coming from the head, made sense in a practical way.
And one of the things you wrote to me was that you don't feel like you belong there at all, that it's okay for a temporary location.
Yeah.
And I was so curious, like, oh, I hope nothing heavy is going on there for you. Unfortunately, there's not, but there's also no deep connection. So people often ask, like, what do you say about a place where you have no planetary influence? So not major ones anyway. There are like minor things going through pretty much everywhere. And what that often indicates is that you will probably not settle down there, basically. Like, it's a chapter in your life. It's, as you said, it's okay for a period of your life. And it can be, like a pit stop where you just recharge, or try to anyway, and kind of reflect on what you've just gone through. But it's not a place where you end up putting down roots in the end. So this isn't it.
Yeah.
Or may not be it.
Well, and like you said, maybe it's a place to kind of recharge a little bit, and maybe it is the places that don't have a big influence on us, that provide that neutral background to do that. Because I feel definitely some sort of healing process has started here, where I'm like, I can just say, oh yeah, I don't have to love this place. It's very nice, on the surface. It's like this way worse places, and it's like we have beautiful springtime weather here at the moment, and it's like there's lots of things to do, which is amazing, and much more varied than, say, Texas was. And in terms of all that sort of thing, like, yeah, I can have a good time here, but there is something missing on a deeper level that I now have experienced in other places, and it's just not really happening here. But that's okay. And I think the moment where I'm like, okay, it is okay. I don't need the drama all the time.
Exactly.
So maybe it's exactly where I need to be right now. So
I think it makes sense. Yeah. It's like when you break your leg and it starts to heal. Do you start running a marathon immediately? No, no. You have to take baby steps, and this could be a place where you can do that.
Yeah.
For as long as you need to.
So I love how we're using my birth chart and all the lines and the planets and everything to kind of explain to some degree how I've ended up in these places. But if I wanted to take it for and I guess to also to bring other people into play here, this is the number one question, I guess, that a lot of your clients will ask you. Well, where should I be? Where should I go? What would be a good place for me for my personal growth? Where would I be really? Where's a place that would be really easy to be without major challenges? You said something before the session where you're like, you seem to pick places that are a bit challenging for you. So I guess that's me. That's my temperament. I don't do easy.
Yeah.
I get itchy feet, you know. So I wonder where I'll end up. And
Yeah.
as my husband and I have talked about, we do have plans of moving back to Europe, but probably neither to the UK nor Germany. I'm not really sure, not at this point, but there are definitely other places we've talked about. And so I wonder if there's anything. I'm kind of nervous because it's like, do I really want to know what those places would mean on an energetic level? But yeah, why not?
Yeah. So let me just pull those places up that you mentioned as well. So one of the things, so now that we enter the territory of using astrology to make decisions about where to go, there are two ways that people go about that. And one is that they have specific locations in mind. And then, you can ask like, well, how is this place going to jive with me? And, I'm not a fortune teller, neither is astrology. But it can give you some indications of what to expect. And, we always have free will. We can choose to take on the challenge. We can choose to trust that, I really feel like I need to go there, and okay, it's going to be maybe challenging in this or that aspect, but I need this, and then we need to trust that feeling. And that's one way. And the other way is to say, well, I'd love a place that will help me, I don't know, excel in my career, or where I feel like emotionally deeply satisfied, or I want a place that's gonna, not be boring. There are different things that we want, and when we are globally minded, we can be quite, well, not entirely flexible, but quite flexible about the direction, more or less. So when we have the privilege of choice, we can look at the map from a more open-ended perspective of like, okay, where could be a best place for you in terms of love or career or family or whatever it is that the person wants to be the focus of their life going forward in the next while anyway. But in your case, you had specific places in mind. And so I had a look at them in more detail. And then this was when this Mars influence came up again, where it's like, okay, interesting. You're drawn to places where you can be in that go-getter energy, that sort of driven, passionate energy. And that's something that you need. And it makes perfect sense to me that you would get bored in easy places then, because you have that need to be in those places. And maybe once you get older, then that will kind of, die down or, become more subtle. But at this point in your life still, there's something about that you need, that sort of energy.
So just a quick aside here, I actually edited out the names of the places that I'd given Katherine in advance because I didn't feel like sharing everything. I'm already sharing quite a lot. So there might be a few little gaps and pauses in the following section, just so you're aware. And I'm referencing place A and place B. So we limited it to 2. Just so you know that we are talking about actual physical places. I just felt like I didn't want to cut out this whole section because what Katherine has to say is so interesting, but yeah, somewhat edited. Okay, so what do you have to say about place A?
You have that similar Venus energy that you had in California. So again, your 12th house themes are going to be there for you, but that's okay. I mean, this is part of your soul journey. This is something that you're encouraged to focus on in this lifetime. But when you're ready for it and you're prepared that, okay, this is something that I should embrace, I would imagine it takes off some of the confusion around like, why is this happening to me? Why am I questioning things about myself all the time? But at the same time, you have that go-getter Mars energy. So I wonder what an interesting mix that's going to be for you, when on the one hand, it's, being this passionate woman, and on the other hand, being very deep and spiritual as well. And both of those things can coexist, right?
All right, that was place A. And what about place B?
Is a rather fated place for you as well. But again, 12th house themes, because your North Node, which is that fated, what are you supposed to focus on in this lifetime, is also there. So I would say, purely speaking to an individual, so you are being, you're called to go deeper into your soul and deeper into your spiritual understanding of yourself and of your purpose in this lifetime. And both places are going to introduce new ways of exploring that for you. And, if there's anything I would say is like, there's no right or wrong decision about locations. Partly it's like, it has to feel right. It has to make sense as well.
Yeah.
And then trusting that these experiences are there for a reason. They're not to punish us. They're not to hurt us. They do hurt, not to take away from that, but there's a reason why we need to experience them, and there's a lesson in that can help us grow as souls. But it's a different level, it's a different perspective on life in general, and it can help us give meaning to really difficult times in our life or difficult experiences that make us question everything. But then there's always the earthly things, which is, enjoying the company of our family, enjoying the beautiful surroundings, food, wine, all of those things. So it's a lot of nuances that go into a decision like that, and the spiritual is just one aspect that can give another take on what may be in store for you in these places.
And I mean, clearly also like from a practical point of view, so there might be a place that's maybe in, I don't know, South America or East Asia or something that would be really energetically suited to me, but that wouldn't work on a practical level because I wouldn't want to be so far away, which also kind of excludes California. And there's another place that came up when I mentioned I went to Southern California. I traveled there a few times when we lived in Northern California, but also last time I was there, which is just like San Diego, north of San Diego area, where I had this, just stood there. And I mean, whoever's been there before knows the absolutely amazing impact the view of the Pacific Ocean can have. And that came up on my chart too. You had made a comment about that.
Yeah. And so this is, again, this faded sort of becoming more yourself, understanding yourself on a much deeper level. And it's such an interesting case where on the one hand, you feel so good about your physical environment that's very tangible. And then on a spiritual level, it's also, helping you move closer to where you're supposed to go as a soul, right? And I don't have the answer. I cannot read from your chart like what that is or what are you supposed to discover about yourself, what that theme is all about. That's something only you know, and I think you can keep that to yourself. But this is what your soul wants. This is what it needs, a place where it can dive deeper.
Maybe I just need to spend more time there, just travel there from time to time for energy recharge. Absolutely no problem with that.
And that's a good thing to do as well. So there are some places that I would recommend for, if you want a place that's good for spiritual retreat or, as a pit stop, like we talked about New Jersey, there are different places that we can utilize for a specific reason so that we can recharge and grow and reflect. And then we don't need to settle down there. We don't need to put our whole family through that experience, but we can put ourselves through that experience if we need that and if we want that. So we can be quite intentional about our choices and then see what comes up and let life unfold at the end of the day.
Yeah. Do you have any particularly good places for me to go that might not have come up?
Any particularly good places? Since you don't like easy places anyway, then I'm and maybe this is the Scorpio in me because I have a lot of Scorpio placements as well. I'm very much of the belief that I go where my soul needs to go. And the way that you described, if we were in a coaching session and I heard a client speak in that way, I would be like, why not? Give me one reason why you shouldn't, because I could see that your face lit up. It made you change your posture and, such a smile came onto your face. And that is something that I look for independent of astrology. And so I would say, trust your instincts, trust it and see where it takes you. Right.
Good. And anywhere I need to avoid because it's just too much, even for me.
Well, Chiron, don't go back to Austin.
Well, I guess I learned the lessons I needed to learn there.
And one thing about your birth chart is that you have one of those charts, and I have the same, where you've got different eggs in different baskets.
Mm-hmm.
which means there's no one clear focus in your life. I mean, the soul purpose is one, but different areas of your life are all activated depending on which becomes predominant. So they're all very much interconnected. So in a way, your soul is here to do a lot. Like you're busy. Like you don't have time to just chill and relax. This is not what you're here
Oh,
for.
great.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
So
Yeah.
I don't even need to attempt to do that.
No, no. And as you said, you feel bored. You feel bored. And as annoying as that can be, that
Yeah.
you would love to have a predictable, easy life, your soul doesn't want that. Doesn't look like it anyway.
Oh God, maybe in the next life then.
Maybe, yeah. If you're a good student in this life, then maybe you'll get an easier one.
Oh, well, this has been so much information and so interesting. So nothing is shocking. And as much as I'm kind of like, well, maybe, well, I wish I'd known these things before moving to a certain place. But at the same time, like, like you said, we do these things for all sorts of reasons, and you can't control everything. Okay, so there are two things that I still wanted to talk about briefly. So one was when I sent you a list of places that I've traveled to or spent some time in that didn't really mean anything. And one of them was Paris, which I said was like, it's a very nice city and all that, but I didn't really feel any vibe.
Yeah.
You said, Paris might be an interesting one for you though.
So it's the North Node, 12th house themes, your soul's purpose. But I'm curious, so how old were you when you went to Paris or into Paris?
I was the last time, I've been a few times, and I think the last time I went, I was like early 30s. So it's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah. So this is just a theory. And I'm yet to confirm it, so I'm still being a scientist about this, but because it's the North Node, and this is something that we mature into, and that happens by the age of 42. When you're in your early 30s, it's too early to that sort of, who am I? The theme of whatever you're supposed to focus on in this lifetime may be too foreign for you. It's just like a jungle. It's like, the hell is this? Like, why would I do this? And so I wonder if you'd been a bit older, or even now, then you would have a different connection with it. And then even still, I would be like, well, would you? Would you though? And I think that's, something you would have to go to Paris and find out for sure.
Oh, maybe I will.
Yeah.
It just shows that why are we expected to know what we want to do in life in terms of profession when we're in our very early 20s? Because no one knows at that point, right? Because I mean, this just clearly shows that. So I guess everyone should be given another opportunity at finding a new career, maybe in their late 30s, early 40s. I mean, and a lot of people actually around that time do change careers. It does happen, right? It's big. If I look around, and a lot of people kind of redefine themselves, and so it totally makes sense. But then again, there's some people who never move away from where they grew up, and they have their career there and everything, and it works out absolutely fine for them, and they're happy, and they don't need to add all the drama of finding themselves in different locations. So everyone's different, and maybe if they had their chart read to them, it would mean, oh, you would be much more successful in Tokyo, but it doesn't mean that that's their journey. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been diving into the North Node, South Node influence on our lives quite deeply recently, because it's something that I'm quite passionate about. So what is our soul here to do? Like, what is this all about?
So what are they? Is there any way you can explain this North Node and South Node?
Yeah. So there's so much philosophy behind it that, that will take forever, but in a short and concise way, the North Node indicates what are we supposed to move towards in this lifetime? What's our soul's purpose? And the south node indicates where do we feel comfortable, what is our safe zone in this lifetime. And so they're always opposite to each other in a birth chart. So if your north node is in the 12th house, your south node will be in the 6th house. So what I would say then is that you would probably feel quite comfortable in your day-to-day job, focus on routines and health and things like that. And venturing out of that can be scarier for some people than others. So it's so much easier, if you feel comfortable in your day-to-day life, to leave that behind and venture into 12th house themes. I mean, it's a dark place, it's scary, it's foreign. And the 42, the year of the age of 42, that is the place where we're forced to do that, where we're forced to look into that jungle and see like, okay, and question everything about our lives so far if we haven't been engaging with that aspect of our life up until that point. But just recently I learned that, the more planets we have closer to our south node, the less we have motivation to actually, push ourselves to get out of our comfort zone. In your case, let me just double check. You have plenty of motivation because all of your planets are basically around your north node. So what that means is like when you don't feel like your south node is giving, or your comfort zone is giving you enough, then of course you're like, well, that jungle has to be better than this, right? So you're more eager to go out there and do that.
That makes so much sense. Do you know that that's 42 was the age when I moved to Austin? Yeah.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So do look into north node and south node.
And then there was one thing you mentioned earlier, which I'm just so curious about. And this might not have anything to do with the location of where I am or where I've been, but you said it makes total sense that I would have a podcast. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. So your 11th house, which is also to do which has to do with communities, networks, social media. This would often indicate when, you work through social media, you start a business or things like that. And with you have your sun sign there. So this is an area in which you shine. So groups and communities and networks like that may be a big or an integral part of how you feel good, like where you can shine, things like that. You're nodding, so I'm guessing that's a good thing. I'm on the right track. And your MC is there. MC has relates to our career choices. So again, another indication that this may be an important area for your life. And then you got Mercury, which is about communication, learning, chatting, things like that. And, if you look at the planets plain and simple, you're like, this could go in any sort of way, but you've decided to do a podcast. And I'm like, of course you would.
Oh, I love that. And like today, I mean, this has been such a wonderful conversation and so interesting and eye-opening and confirming and validating. And yeah. So I'm really hoping that for the listeners that this is something that maybe would kick someone into action and maybe be like, maybe I should look into this. And or there's so much in there that resonates with me, or just I'm so interested to see what is going on with my own birth chart. So people wanted to connect with you, where would they do that? And can you talk a little bit more about your process and what it entails?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the first step is to go open your favorite browser and type in baddaysabroad.com. I am active on social media to an extent in that you can find me on Instagram with the same handle. But I realized social media is not a thing for me. So the way that you can connect with me is, first off, just, get to know me a bit more, is that I have a monthly newsletter where I share soulful strategies around how to decide on should you move, where should you settle down, and all the emotional aspects that play into that decision and what can make it hard for us to decide. And then I also talk about astrology, about how can we use this tool to help us understand the experiences that we've had and how to use it as a tool to decide where to go or how to prepare energetically for what may be in store. And on my website, you can also find details about these astrology packages that I have. And the way that you can prepare for it is that either you have already some places in mind that you'd like me to look into, which I'll then do, or you're more, open and curious about, well, if I wanted to focus on building a family or finding love, then where would you recommend, or where would my chart recommend, and what themes would come up for me then, right? And if you're really, really ready for a deep dive, as we did with Stephanie now, then they also have this sort of longer, deeper reading where we look at the ins and outs of everywhere where you've been and where you're thinking of moving to, and how does that all play out in relation to your birth chart as well. And so that's if you feel called to do that, then do check out my website, hang around in my newsletter for a while, and see if you feel that this is something for you, if this will help your soul to go in the place that it needs to go.
Well, great. Thank you so much for this. And I can absolutely recommend it. And I know there's so many expats or wannabe expats or ex-expats who who crave more knowledge and a deeper connection to what prompted certain things, or so
exactly.
Anyway, thank you so much for your time, Katherine. This has been really great, and I will put all links and everything in the show notes. Also, if you have any more recommendations on reading, websites, etc., please just let me know, and I'll include them. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are interested, and a lot of people so far have been unaware of the fact that this sort of thing exists. So yeah, it's just another way of finding out more about yourself. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a treat for me as well, and I applaud you for being so open and vulnerable on a podcast. I mean, it makes sense looking at your birth chart, but it's been an absolute pleasure for me, and getting to know you as well, and understanding what is, I've understood your birth chart, but then getting the context and getting your own story too, that's been a pleasure and an honor for me. And I hope whoever is hearing this and feeling a call to dive into things more, then do check out the links that Stephanie's going to share with you as well. And then I hope to meet you one day.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay, so that was a lot. Thank you again, Katherine, for this extensive journey through my past, present, and future. I am still processing it all, and it's quite overwhelming, to be honest. Thank you also for providing lots of links and book tips, all of which I've added in the show notes, and that you, dear listeners, can delve into if you feel like you want to know more about this topic. So if you feel like, whoa, this was all way too much, then some of the links will help. And also myself and Katherine will be happy to answer any questions that you have, because obviously this is a huge topic and we tried to squeeze it all in, but of course there's so much more to learn. I'm really excited to share a special Transcontinental Overload code with you that Katherine is offering. Thank you so much for doing this, Katherine. So my listeners get 20% off one of her astrological packages if you mention astromap20 when booking your service. And it's on baddaysabroad.com. All the links are in the show notes. This will be a really great gift to yourself, or maybe a friend, expat or not, who needs some extra help in finding out more about themselves, or for those of us who are really curious about why we do certain things and why we're drawn to certain places. And yeah, I actually really took a lot of really relevant insights that helped me ease some of my niggling questions, and I'm sure there's lots of people out there who feel the same way. Again, don't hesitate to reach out to me or Katherine if you have further questions. And I hope this has made you curious, as I'm finding this journey really, really interesting. And that is it for today. Enjoy your June and the longer days, more sunshine, and I'll see you next time.